Welcome to the Necessary Entrepreneur Podcast, where we deep dive into the stories and strategies behind today's most innovative and impactful entrepreneurs. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest for this episode, Jeff Chandler, the visionary founder and CEO of Z-Jak Technologies. Jeff has been at the forefront of technological innovation, steering Z-Jak Technologies to become a leading player in the tech industry. With a background in software development and a passion for cutting-edge solutions, Jeff's journey is a testament to the power of perseverance and strategic thinking in the entrepreneurial world. Under Jeff's leadership, Z-Jak Technologies has delivered groundbreaking solutions that address some of the most pressing challenges in the tech landscape. His commitment to excellence and forward-thinking approach has not only driven the success of his company, but has also set new standards in the industry. In this episode, we'll explore Jeff's entrepreneurial journey, beginning with writing programs for car dealerships in the infancy of computer technology, starting a software company in the 90s, his insights on navigating the tech industry, systemizing your business, and the future trends he's most excited about. Stick around as Jeff talks about balancing ideas in business, the Mac versus PC debate, and a deep dive into ransomware. Hey, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or simply curious about the latest in technology, you're in for an engaging and inspiring conversation. I'm pumped today about talking about cybersecurity, all the things in the world of IT and business and all the way around. So where in the world did Z-Jak Technologies come from?
Yeah, so Z-Jak Technologies was actually kind of a fun thing I did with my family back 10 years ago or so for a Wi-Fi ID. And then when I was looking for a business name, I wanted to do something unique. You know, I didn't want to sound like Bob's Technology Services, where it sounded like every other business in town. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we've been using that for a name, and I kind of like what it represents. So let's go with that. And
what's it represent?
So the Z, if you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Z, start with the end in mind. And that's what we do. Mm-hmm. So, what are my goals? What do I want to get out of this? How do I want to end up with this business? If I'm working with a business owner, what are their goals? How can I help them achieve those goals? And then the ZJAK is my kids' initials. Just a reminder to me that, it's not just about me, it's about my family. Now the kids are all out of the house now, but it's just something fun to remember, stay engaged with the family, don't let this business consume you. Just have fun with it, enjoy it, and just,
But how many hours a week do you work? You said have fun with it.
Well, it's hard to get away from it because I piddle with it too, so even when I'm off, I'm playing with the computers just because I enjoy doing it. So probably 50 to 60 hours a week, something like that.
You lose track.
Something like that.
Yeah. So you said start with the end in mind to help because you're a consultant, right? IT consultant, you're a business consultant. Starting with the end in mind, if you're trying to help us entrepreneurs focus that way, how did you do that for your business? What was starting with the end in mind for your business?
Yeah. So for me, I'm getting towards the end of my career. So what do I want to do with this business? This is the 3rd business I've been a part of as starting a business. And I've kind of seen how those worked out. And the goal eventually is to, exit the business. I knew that was something I wanted to think about. I'm not gonna be around forever, can't work forever. So what can I do to help kind of get me to that goal? How can I get it to an exit point where I built the business up enough that it's worth becoming part of a larger organization or selling it and doing something else for fun.
Are you working towards that actively now?
I am, yes.
What's that look like? I mean, we can't talk. We don't have hours and hours to go through decks and building the business, but just all these crazy things.
Right.
What do you think one of the most important things you're working on that sets it up to be saleable?
So some of the things like the E-Myth. So kind of using that as a guideline as well.
It's a good book.
So when you think about the E-Myth book, they talk about using your business and systemizing it. Think about your business as if it's going to be a franchise. So I'm not a technician that's got helpers. as some people say. I'm a technician and a business owner. So lean into the business owner part of it, where I'm not as important on the technician side, and then bring in experts who can help me do those daily tasks to actually execute on the business, document everything, make sure that, if I want to go out of town, if I'm going on a cruise, that I've got somebody I can count on who can do things effectively, and it's, I can step away for a little bit and take a break.
How dare you go on a cruise?
Well, as long as I have Wi-Fi.
That's the only, right? That's it.
That's the rule, right? So we can go on a cruise, but I want the premium Wi-Fi.
The speed, does that matter?
It does, yes.
Okay. You were around with me as well. I remember the sound of the original connections to the internet. It's like that's embedded in my brain.
Right.
The younger generations don't have, fortunately for them, that sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious.
Right.
We thought that was amazing then. It's terrible now. What do we do with that in life? So 40 years ago, the things that we thought were awesome.
The AOL disk?
Yeah. Yeah, that you had to actually download the software.
Right.
Isn't that funny how business evolves? What we loved 40 years ago and what we thought was good and great then is completely out of time now.
Right, exactly.
What do we do with that in business?
So when I go back to where I started at, I was a college student, and I was working for an insurance agent on an internship, and IBM PCs were kind of new at the time, and he said, let's go get one of those and figure out what to do with it. So went out, we bought an IBM PC for $5,000 that had 2 floppy drives. That was it, and a green screen.
How many meg did those hold?
Not much.
It was small.
It was like 128K or something like that. It
yeah.
wasn't a lot.
Wow.
I can't remember offhand, but it wasn't much. But it was a big deal.
Was that the beginning of your technology endeavors?
Yeah. So I was a computer engineering student at University of Louisville. So this was something I was doing as an internship. It's just part of getting to graduation. And it turned out that I was writing applications for him, and he was working with a lot of car dealers. And so I started seeing some opportunities in these car dealers of things that they were doing a lot of manual work on, and started writing some software for the car dealers. And we ended up, as a college student, I had 5 employees working for this insurance agent, managing software for car dealers all around the state of Kentucky. And it was a little much for me being, 20 years old and having to deal with not only running this sort of sub business with his insurance agency, but then managing a team of people. And luckily, my aunt worked there, and she was a good mentor to me. Kind of, when I talked about personal type issues with dealing with the employees, so she helped with that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing that.
So there's this idea that you should start before you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like that's what was going on.
Just kind of jumped in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the first time we went out to show another car dealer what we had built, go in with the owner, we sit down with the team, with the leadership team of the car dealership, and he goes, okay, Jeff's going to give you a presentation on this new software. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I got up and gave this presentation, and he wrote us a check right there. Like, wow, this is kind of cool.
How much was that check for?
Like $10,000.
It's a lot of money.
Back in 1986, it was a lot of money.
It's probably 50 or 60K now.
Right.
Yeah.
But back then, there wasn't a lot of people who were building really sort of specific applications for car dealers. You had to buy a big mainframe computer. It was very, very expensive. So we were focusing in on this real niche sort of product for them to help their finance offices, and people seemed like they couldn't hand us checks fast enough there for a little bit.
Have you always been this comfortable talking?
No, I'm kind of an introvert. So
you tell yourself that, but we just met a few minutes ago, right? And you're talking about it well. You're comfortable. You're confident.
Yeah, I've done a lot of interviews like this, so it's helped a lot. My wife says I'm a forced extrovert. So, what's
the alternative? A forced introvert?
Right. So if you're going to be a business owner, you got to be out there and talking about it. So when I started this particular business, I knew I was going to have to go out and really sell what I was doing. It wasn't the same as it was when I had other businesses in the past. So I needed to get really comfortable talking to people. So what I did, I actually signed up for a thing called Lunch Club. I don't know if it's still around, but they just paired you with random people every week, and you got to get on and talk about your business, what was going on. So for me, it was an opportunity to get in there and talk about, what I was working on and kind of see what people thought about it, sort of figure out what resonated with people, what kind of problems they were having in their business. And it helped me really sort of hone that message of what I wanted to do in my business. And then I joined the Chamber of Commerce and a couple of leads groups. And every week you got to get up for 60 seconds, 2 minutes, talk about what's going on, sort of off the cuff a lot of times. So just those kinds of things definitely help to sort of get out there, talk about what's going on, help you to build your business. If it's just something you have to do if you want to be a business owner.
Yeah. Did you know that when you started in business? Did you know you were going to have to do that?
A little bit, yeah. But
and you still jumped in.
What
do you think if we were sitting down and you had already sold your business and we were reflecting on all the years?
Mm-hmm.
You sold the business, you're in retirement.
Right.
You're always a guy that's going to be dabbling in tech. You just are.
Right.
But let's say we were sitting here having a conversation and you've already retired.
Mm-hmm.
And you would look back on all these years of operating businesses, of
Mm-hmm.
being in management. What would you say about it?
Just don't forget what's important. That this is all temporary. Enjoy. People don't go to their graves saying, "I wish I had worked more." That's what I've hear people say, and I feel the same way. Enjoy what you're doing. For example, even today, my granddaughter comes over on Fridays to spend the day with my wife. If I'm working at home, I'm going to stop by, read a book to her for a few minutes, take a break, go for a walk with her, just do something to take a break to make sure that I'm staying engaged with the family that way too.
So for you, what matters is the family.
Right.
Keep that in mind.
Yes.
Even in your 60-hour work weeks.
Yes. There's always a break. My wife sleeps a little bit late. I don't know if she wants me to say that, but it's like she likes to sleep a little bit later.
Because she accomplishes a lot when she gets up, Jeff. That's why.
Right. But so I get up. I'm an early person, so I get up usually Saturday morning, work till about noon or so. Might go to the gym, do those kinds of things. Kind of helps me get focused, kind of knock out some things where I need some concentration time. A lot of times during the week, you're talking to clients, you're doing sales calls, you're doing lots of different things, and it's hard to get some focus time. Mm-hmm. So for me, Saturday morning's a good time to get 2 or 3 hours, just some focus time to knock out some things that I need to get done.
What would you do different? And I don't mean regrets.
Mm-hmm.
I see people so often, we have this predetermined answer we're going to give to this. It's like, do you have regrets? No, I don't have regrets because I wouldn't be the person I am today and I wouldn't trade that for anything. No,
mm-hmm.
I think the better relationship to have is we can really be honest every day. If I reflect at the end of my individual day,
mm-hmm.
I look back on that day and there's always something I could have done better.
Right.
I don't have to have a negative relationship with it, but that's
mm-hmm.
how we grow and learn. But then if we can do it for every day, we can do it for every year,
mm-hmm.
every decade. I know I can look back on my business journey.
Mm-hmm.
And now, having the intelligence I have a lot more to learn.
Right.
But having it now in that perspective and then I've learned, I can look back and say, yeah, I would have done that different.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think if you look back over these 20, 30, 40 years, not just you specifically, but can you identify one or two things
mm-hmm.
that maybe you, but also a lot of business owners you're with, you're like, you know what, I would have done that thing different.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a thing like I would have prepared my business to sell it? I would have, I would have hired more people. I would have hired fewer people.
Mm-hmm.
I would have studied more. I would have gotten more certifications.
Right.
What would have made the biggest impact for you? And then also you see in others. Does that come to mind?
Yeah. So for me, when I built this business, so we talked about what I did when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
I went after I left that job after a few years. I went to work for a couple engineering firms, did some stuff there, and then decided there was a guy I was working with that said, hey, let's start a software company. I'll do the sales and you can do all the technical work. About 6 months in, he figured out that, being an entrepreneur is really hard and he didn't want to do it anymore. So now he's responsible for everything. This was in the 90s and things were just, things were just really taking off. We were signing a lot of clients and the business was actually growing faster than I could pay for it at the time. And so everybody else was getting paid but me. But we were growing and growing and growing, and it was a lot of stress. So eventually I scaled that back to focus on just some key clients that I wanted to work with. And when I did, and then eventually ran into this internet startup company back in 99, when we were all going to be bazillionaires. If you put .com on the end of it, you're going to be a bazillionaire, right?
The big one they talk about is pets.com.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep. So we started an internet insurance company with some investors, and they said, look, if you want to do it, you can't do it as a consultant or a contractor. We want you full time. So came in, we were a little ahead of our time. So the .com crash happened. We were a little ahead of our time, and we had to actually build a real business at that point. And it took some years, took 17 years. And then we eventually got acquired by a Fortune 100 company. But what I learned from that, going from this small entrepreneurial focused company with 150 people when we sold it to 35,000 was just too much of a culture shock for me. It didn't feel like I was really making a difference. So I knew I wanted to go out and do something different. And at first I was thinking, I like going camping. I love going hiking at Red River Gorge, doing those kinds of things. Let's start an outdoor company, just something completely different. So I get out, I'm about, 2 months out, and people are going, hey, I need some IT help. I know you did this. Can you help me? And I just kept kind of getting drugged back into it, so to speak. And I thought, I really enjoy doing this. I can still do the outdoor stuff. I still like, camping and hiking and stuff. I'm still going to do that. But I really enjoy helping people solve these problems. It's that engineer brain in me, sort of. So, I like solving these problems. I like helping people. So I kind of jumped back in. And my goal when I started this business was not to feel like I have this pressure of a big staff. So what I wanted to do was bring in a lot of strategic partners. So rather than hiring, a marketing person, salespeople, lots of technicians, I wanted to partner with people who were experts in those, and that's what they did. So I've got a very small team of people, like a couple of techs that help out when I need them to. And then I've got an outsourced marketing firm. I partner with other IT firms around the country. It's kind of like a co-op of IT companies. There's around 200 of us. So for me to staff a 24/7 help desk, I've got to have probably 8 people to do that, because you've got to have 2 people for each shift, and then people want to take vacations. And I want it live answer. I wanted people, because I know how owners are. When they work, they're working Saturday, they're working Sunday, they're working nights, they're doing all sorts of off-hour things. So I knew that for business owners, having that 24/7 support was going to be really important. So I hooked up with all these guys here. We connected, and what happens is we all pitch in. We run one common help desk for all of us. So we're able to run this bunch of really small IT companies around the country. We're able to run it as one big company, so to speak, with a help desk that's based in Dallas. So you're not calling overseas to talk to somebody when you need help. That are all native English speakers, and that they understand. They're very sharp people. And then I don't have to deal with the day-to-day hiring of help desk people by doing that. And today everything can be done remotely. So does it make a difference if the person you call is in Dallas or they're the other end of the line in Louisville?
If they're fixing the problem, it doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the help desk team can't take care of it, then they escalate it back to me, and then me or somebody who's helping me can go out and take care of that problem.
Does this, jumping over to the cybersecurity part, which is obviously hugely relevant today,
right,
more than ever, with everything being in the cloud and everything being remote, and now with AI, how do we even know who we're talking to?
Right.
Like, I would think that this possibly, I'm like, man, you're running an efficient business, but we're getting away from this being in the same office together fixing problems. Does this expose us at a higher degree of, having issues with cybersecurity? Does it? Or no?
Yeah, absolutely, because you don't see people.
Yep.
I just read something this morning about a CEO who had someone deep fake the CEO's voice, called into the office, was trying to get some checks cut. The CFO or whoever was talking to him was a little suspicious. It sounded just like the boss, and he wanted to help him, and people want to help, and they prey on that weakness. So he wants to help. So he just said, "Hey, what was that book you recommended to me the other day?" And it tripped up the AI, and he couldn't answer it. And then at that point, he knew it was not
fake.
It was not valid, right? So unfortunately, from just some voice things you can get off YouTube, from all sorts of things, you can mimic that voice and create an AI copy of it, and you can make calls. You can do lots of things. There was another incident earlier this year where It was a company, and there was, I think, I don't know how many people were on the call, 6, 8 people on the call. It was a Zoom call. Everybody on the call was a deep fake except for the guy they were trying to get a check from. And so they got this guy to cut a $20 million check from this deep fake Zoom call because he assumed that, hey, I can see the boss. He's talking to me. This must be valid.
This really happened. This wasn't just a test case.
No, this really happened earlier this year. And so it's just stuff you have to watch out for. And with this AI stuff today, it's growing so rapidly, just something you really need to watch out for.
How do you train this? For example, for me, I'm running a real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with customers. I'm helping them achieve this pride of home ownership.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with cybersecurity. However,
Right.
there's people transferring all their funds and
Mhm.
wiring it to
Right.
put a down payment on their home
Absolutely.
or to pay for their home.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you teach us to have the right relationship, to have the right perspective when it's not our business,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so important now?
Yeah, and we tell people it's kind of a culture change too. So people just kind of take it for granted, or and people, like I said, people are trusting. They want to help you. So when you call into a business and you're asking for help with something, the people on the customer service line, they want to help. The customer's always right? So they're trying to help. They're trying to be helpful because of stuff you can find on Facebook, LinkedIn, all sorts of social media things. These AI tools are able to pull all that data together, create a profile of you, and then could potentially call in and answer all the security questions correctly. They know your dog's name, your mother's maiden name, all the answers to your questions. And so it makes it really difficult for a business owner to check that. So it's really important for businesses to have lots of checks and balances before they start sending money out the door. So whether that's multiple signatures on it, some sort of verification code, something that's known only to that person. It could be a text message you're sending to them. It could be an email they send. Even email's a little squirrely these days, but
there's something going around. I mean, this just brings it up. About every month or two,
mm-hmm.
we have our own intranet internally in the
Mm-hmm.
real estate company, but our real estate agents will receive text messages as if it's me trying to get them to go to the store.
Right. Get gift cards.
Yep. And so that happens. And so these people that join our company, they've never met me.
Mm-hmm.
We're becoming that size now, right?
Right.
And think about it. I just received a message from the CEO. Oh my gosh. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to disappoint them, right?
Right.
Let me go try to fix this. And I've seen some of the interactions. They'll interact with the person to try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
These people are slick.
They are, yeah.
They are. There was one time someone was about to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow. So to your point, we want to help. We want to do the right thing. We
Mm-hmm.
want to follow instructions.
Mm-hmm.
So have some checks and balances in place before money's exchanged.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And even my father-in-law got tripped up by one of those. One of those things where he thought it was somebody from the church who was calling him, texting him about getting some gift cards for some people who were visiting. And he bought a bunch of Apple gift cards, and he was ready to hand it over to somebody he had never met in a parking lot. And he kind of had that second thought of maybe this isn't right, and called, asked somebody else in the family about it. And they said, don't do that. Be careful. So all the kids that year got Apple gift cards for Christmas.
So he repurposed them well.
Yes.
So you talked a few minutes ago
Mm-hmm.
about your business partner, the first business. About 6 months in, he realized how tough entrepreneurship was,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't originally. Why is entrepreneurship tough?
Yeah, it's getting started is the hard part, because you got to think you're starting from zero. So my daughter asked me, she said, so what does it take to start a business? I said, you've got to be willing to work for nothing for a couple of years. Are you willing to, do you have savings? Are you willing to sacrifice and pay other people before you get paid for a little bit? Because it's going to take some time to build the business where it's profitable and you can start, making a living at it.
Why is that? Why does it take a couple of years?
People have to know who you are. You've got to start building that trust with people. People say you don't walk into a business owner, or you don't meet somebody at a bar and ask them to marry you on the first date, right?
Some have.
You might if you go to Vegas.
What's the outcome? What's the outcome, right?
Right. So, and it's the same kind of thing with business. You can't, as a salesperson or somebody trying to get a new sale, you can't walk into a business And first thing you say is, hey, you want to be my client? You've got to start building those relationships, and it takes time. For some things, maybe for a restaurant, it's a little bit easier to do that because it's more obvious at what you're doing, but more of a professional services type business, it takes time to build those relationships, to get people to trust you. They're giving you money. IT, there's a lot of startup costs with IT. I've got to buy all the tools to support my clients. I've got to be able to take care of them. So there's some startup costs there. And then it's a matter of just making sure that the people you do get, as you bring them in, that you're taking care of them, that you're doing the right thing. And then you've got to go out and get the next person and the next person. So it just takes a lot of work to sort of build those relationships and build that trust with people.
So you wrote a book. It's a pretty long title. Right?
This one?
Look at that. Hacked. Of course you did. And someone,
that's for you.
Thank you. I'm not going to say what this logo looks like. It's a certain group of people that have something like that, right?
Right.
They're hackers out there on the internet. Or they say they're saving the world.
The hoodied hacker, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Are those guys good or bad?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is they run that as a business. So these guys, it's very organized. It's not, the kid in his mom's basement anymore. Now these are actual business groups who are in it and they're very good at doing these types of things. So what happens is they actually have, you've heard of things like software as a service, which is like Google and Salesforce and all those sorts of things. They actually have ransomware as a service now. So these guys who are really good at writing ransomware will write the ransomware, but they're not as good on the social engineering side. So what they'll do is they will sell licenses for that ransomware to the social engineering type people who go out, and then they get a cut of anything they get.
Are most of these guys in other countries?
They are.
You hear it like Russia, Eastern Europe, right?
Exactly. And it's very difficult for the U.S. law enforcement to go after them.
Yeah, their arms don't reach there.
Right, exactly. They're in Russia. They could be in the Middle East. They could be in countries in Africa.
They might even be giving some of the money to those politicians in those countries.
They could be.
Right?
They could be state-sponsored.
Yeah. So it says hacked, what you must know now to protect your business, financials, customer data, and reputation from cyber criminals. Mm-hmm. So what must we know now if we haven't already talked about it?
Right. So one thing I hear a lot, especially with small business owners, is I'm too small. They're not going to come after me. Right. So unfortunately, they're after everybody. So they're sending out mass emails. They're doing lots of things out there to try to get somebody hooked and bring them in. So they might send out, 1 million emails very, very easily. And that's how most of them start, with an email. So once they get in, now you click that link. Now they know they've got you on the hook. So now they're going to start, reeling you in. What can we do? We're going to ignite some ransomware. And then once we get the ransomware done, what happens if you've got good backups, which a lot of businesses are getting better at doing backups. Well, what they do is they've already exfiltrated all of your data. They've got copies of your client's social security numbers. They've got all sorts of data about your business. They could have blueprints for your products, all sorts of things. So what they will do is then they'll say, okay, you got the backups, but we're going to put all your stuff on the internet unless you pay me the ransom. Okay. So then they'll say, I've got backups. This data is already on the internet, or I don't care. They might even go after your clients because now they've got all their information. And they'll say, hey, John Doe, I've got your information. I'm going to publish your social security number and all of your HR data on the internet unless you pay me a ransom. So they're very sophisticated that way. And even I've heard of them worked with some forensics people who've said, look, if you don't pay the ransom, just be ready, because they may start calling and threatening your office. So they have lots of ways to try to get you to pay, and they're pretty ruthless about it.
It feels like to me these people don't have a soul.
You could say that, but then you hear some fun, interesting stories. Like one of the ransomware groups I'd heard a few years ago had sold their ransomware as a service, and this group attacked a children's hospital. And this ransomware service thought that was not cool and basically cut them off. Like, okay, so you're telling me you've got a little ethics, but so
Yeah,
it
how
didn't
do
make
you?
any sense.
Yeah, we're a country of we're supposed to be a country of laws and rules,
Right.
right? And we're all trained from being young from those around us. Like, here's your rules. Here's how you treat others. Here's our culture. Here's how we're going to do this thing.
Right.
So we're going out into the world, raised by the people we're raised, educated through the systems we're educated in, and we're
Yeah.
going out into the world, and there's a different set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough to exist in that environment,
Right.
right? So what do we do with that? Be really scared, run for the hills, shut down our life? What do we do?
Yeah, it's easy to think, just be overwhelmed and say, it's going to happen, and kind of be, whatever, it's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we just tell people, be careful. What we want to do is work with you to make sure you're not an easy target. So, what can we do to sort of harden your defenses so that they move on to the next business who may not have the same protections you do?
Because the best hackers can pretty much hack anything, right?
Right.
They can find someone.
Yeah. If they've hacked government agencies,
CIA, FBI, they've hacked those places.
right. And they hacked the big hospital in Louisville, Norton Hospital.
And I bet they had protections at an elite level.
Right. And they probably got huge security teams.
Yeah.
They if they want to go after you, they're going to get in.
Yep.
But with these smaller businesses, they're not necessarily going to be that aggressive. They're not going to be a particular target. It's more like a blanket sort of target.
So it's important maybe just to have alarms in place. Is
Right.
that the most important thing? That's what my brain tells me.
Yeah. So you want to protect first. Make sure they can't get in the front door. So think about it. You got a lock on the door. You want to make sure they can't get in the front door, and then you want alarms. So if they do get in the front door, you want to know that they did it, and then you want to have a way to defend yourself. So you need to have all three of those things in place.
And you know how to tell us to do that.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
That's
All right.
what we do.
Okay. It would probably feel bad to be someone that's as smart, as intelligent as you, for you to be hacked. I'm not trying to get anybody to target you.
Well, I know that they've come after me because I look at my firewall logs every day. So I see the alerts that come in. So I know, like, even at my house, I've got a commercial grade firewall at the house because I see the logs of things coming in. I even had a security team try to hack my house to see what they could do with the Best Buy type router that you can get. And it wasn't super difficult for them to get in. But they were particularly going after me. And so the thing is, like, especially with IT providers, because we have access into lots of clients' systems, IT providers are a really big target for the hackers. So I just have to be extra careful everywhere I go with what they're doing.
You and your engineer brain. I always
Right.
know when I'm talking to an engineer brain, I'm going to get it straight. I always know that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next 10 years of Jeff's life? I know you're going to prepare to sell the business. You're a grandpa and all that, but
Mm-hmm.
with everything you've learned thus far in life, like, now's the time to, like, really tie a bow around this thing
Right.
to do something big and to impact the community. What do you do? What's the next decade?
So I do some volunteer work with a nonprofit right now, working with refugees to help them get settled in the U.S. So it's a group that works with especially East African refugees that come into the Louisville area, and what they do is they've got to teach them skills so they can get jobs. So one of the things they did is a lot of the especially the older people who come in don't really have any job skills. So we bought a farm for them. So I volunteered, helped them get some things set up for that farm, and then also the things like the IT for the kids. So the kids, which is kind of interesting, so kids learn English pretty quickly, but they don't really have computers at home. So I got a bunch of Chromebooks for them, got a bunch of them set up with Chromebooks so they can at least do their schoolwork and do some things at home. What I found was interesting was when one of the Chromebooks broke, I was talking to the mom and she says, "I can't work." Like, what do you mean? She said she had started her own small business using the kids' Chromebook. So having that kind of impact, even doing something as small as that, giving a Chromebook to an 8-year-old, had an impact on that family. So I really enjoy doing those kinds of things and sort of teaching them some skills. I enjoy working with especially high school, college kids, or a little bit younger kids, getting them excited about STEM careers. There's such a shortage in the STEM field of people who want to go into that. The kids grow up with computers all around them today. They don't really see that as a career. It's a tool. But it's really important for us to develop that next generation of computers and technology and those sorts of things. AI's not going to do everything. You got to have people who help with that. And maybe it's 10 years the AI may take over and we get Judgment Day, right?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think about this AI thing?
Yeah, there's they call it not Judgment Day, but sort of this point, this inflection point where the AI is sort of so smart that it can teach itself.
Yeah, and it's going to have intelligent thought.
Right, exactly.
Right? What do you think? Like, if you just we don't know exactly what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone has a model,
Right.
but what do you think? What's Jeff's prediction on what AI in our world is going to look like in a decade?
That's probably about when I see it probably happening at that point, where the AI is going to be really smart. And so we're going to have to think about, what kinds of, how we use that as a tool, how we can integrate that into our jobs. It's kind of like, when the cars came out, and the people who sold wagon wheels, what does that next set of careers look like? We got to start thinking about that.
Because AI might be the hacker.
Could be.
Right.
And it does it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This world, huh? This makes me just want to go back and grow vegetables and just hang out with the 5 people around me.
Right. I have a nice garden at home, so we're growing
You're
vegetables.
okay?
Yeah. For now.
Okay. Does that unknown world scare you?
A little bit, but I not too much. I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm thinking, so one of the things that kind of motivates me is I've got I'm early 60s, around 60, retired 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in there. I want to make sure that I've got some time, outside of having the stress of a day-to-day sort of job. And so my dad passed away early from Alzheimer's. So, I kind of see what that did to our family. And I want to make sure that I don't end up where I'm working till I'm 75 and then it's too late.
But that could happen to us on any day.
It could, yes.
What do we do with that life? We're getting outside technology, but that's real. There's one day physically we're all going to not wake up.
Right.
Right. What's the best way to live life to prepare for that? Because I think it's always about the ones that are left behind. Because what you said, what it did to your family when your dad passed. And so we want to leave them in the best shape we can.
Right.
We want to prepare them. We want them to not miss us, but appreciate the time maybe. So what do we do with that? What's Jeff's approach to every day with that being a reality that we know?
Yeah, you think about it. Do you know who your great grandparents are? So how quickly people forget.
3 generations is what
forget
they say.
Who you are,
Yeah.
right? So make an impact on your kids, your family. You can make an impact on them so that they can carry on your values and those sorts of things. That's about all you can do. And make sure that while you're here, you're making an impact, whether that's through volunteer work, all sorts of different things that you can do to help the community.
Make it just a little bit better.
Yep, 1% better.
That's what they say. Just
Right.
1% better every day.
Right.
That idea, if you really spend time on that 1%, because things compound in life, good and bad compound.
Are you talking about Darren Hardy's book?
Yeah.
I read that. Yeah,
the compound effect. It's
Right.
I think I have a lot of books I love, but it's the one that just speaks the most true and real about this experience of life that I've seen to be true. That things compound. They talk about, would you rather have $1 million today or a penny that compounds and doubles every day for 30 days?
Right.
Our brains think the $1 million,
Right.
but that's the wrong choice.
Right.
And so I know that everything I learned today, I think most people, they do have this wrong. They think what they learned today makes them 1% better tomorrow. Yeah, but that's not the real perspective. The real perspective is, tomorrow, but then you compound it again tomorrow.
Right.
Right. And so what you can do is, you do have to focus on just the next day. But if you do that and just realize, put your head down, keep going. We're going to have some losses. We're going to have some failures. We're going to have some tough days. But if you get through tomorrow and it's a little bit better, if you learn a little bit more, the next day you can be double better.
Right.
All of life's that way. Being a friend, I'm sure your experience of being a dad, I bet there's things that you learned. You're like,
right.
Probably wouldn't do it that way again.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So the next time you face it, you're better. And then it's not only that the next time you face it, you're better. The person that you've become to deal with the next time, then you're ready to even go to another level. That's what business is.
Right.
Right. So I know Jim Rohn, he's one of the best thought leaders. He's not around anymore. But he talks about it's not about how much money you make. It's about the person you become that then is able to make a lot of money.
Right.
It's the person you become that you learn through being a parent that then makes you a better parent. So what's your thought about that, about this 1% better? How real is it?
Yeah, so it's something. So I have a bunch of quotes on my whiteboard in my office. One of them is make something happen every day. So just kind of thinking about what can I do, and it going into that same sort of thing, 1% better. What can I do to improve a process, to make the business better? So, they say working on the business instead of in the business, right? So what can I do to make this business run more efficiently so that when I do get to that end goal, it's going to be a lot more smooth for everybody.
Do you have a word? Does Jeff Chandler, does he have a word?
I don't have a word. I have lots of things written on the board.
Yeah? Like you wouldn't have like a word like elite or greatness or awesome or amazing or I don't know. Like is there something you go back to? There's not one?
Not really, no. I have a lot of sayings. I have, done is better than perfect is another one I love to say. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so a lot of times I'll kind of get into something and I want to do it over and over and over again until I get it just right.
So you have a good relationship with the word perfectionist then?
That's probably a good word.
a lot of people have a bad relationship with that. It paralyzes a lot of people.
Right.
Because they're so worried about being perfect they never get started.
Right. Yeah, just get going. You're gonna mess up.
Yeah.
And it's okay to mess up because that's what you learn from is messing up.
Yeah. So your idea about being a perfectionist is you just want to do it so well, you keep going until you so-called perfect it.
Right.
Well, that's good. That's work ethic. That's grit. That's determination. Yeah. So you get started. So you don't wait until you're perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes, obviously if I'm working on somebody's computer, I want to make sure it's perfect. Right. But if other things that maybe it's a marketing thing that we're doing, or if it's an article that I'm working on for, some publication, I'll kind of obsess over it for 3 or 4 days, and it's like, just put it out there. It's fine, and get some feedback. Work with a marketing person who helps. I'll put all my thoughts down. She rewrites it to make it sound better, and then I rewrite it again. She fixes it again, and I can kind of go back and forth. Same thing with like when I wrote that book. I put all my thoughts down. I worked with somebody who was a good writer, who wrote everything. And then went back and we edited it back and forth for 3 or 4 months probably.
So you're good at relying on the other folks that are really good at their thing.
Right.
Yeah. I wrote a chapter of a book and it's terrible. The book's really popular now. 39 people got together and they asked me to write, and I wrote it in one night. I probably didn't take the time, but it's terrible. But the funny thing is, people acknowledge even if it's bad. And then it shows me like what not to do again. Right. Like write it better, but relying on those folks. There's so many people afterwards that have said, Mark, I could have edited that for you. I'm like, I know it's so bad I'm never going to go back and read it, but everyone else is buying it to read it. Yeah, just get started. Just do the thing.
Right, just do it.
Yeah, and rely on other folks around you that are. So hire good people.
Right, and that's going back to what I said before. I don't want to get into a thing where it's necessarily all dependent on me, and I'm got a big staff. I want to do this as a different kind of business where I'm bringing in people who are experts. So another book I love is called Who Not How. I don't know if you've read that one.
I haven't. I've read a lot, but not that one.
So Who Not How talks about, a lot of business owners think about how can I get this particular task done? So think about it differently. Who can I bring in? Who can help me get this done? I helped a business owner earlier this year who was stuck on trying to do something with his computer. He said he spent 2.5 days watching YouTube videos trying to figure it out. Came in, was able to knock it out for him in about 1.5 hours. So, it's same thing like the plumber. I could do the plumbing. Do I want to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and figure it out? Maybe, but I'd rather do something else. Bring in a plumber, an electrician, and get that work done for you.
But if you don't have the money, you still could, though.
You could.
Maybe that's the beginning of the entrepreneurship, those 2 years, why so many people give up and quit. Because they're faced with a lot of different things that you just have to do it. And you don't have the money to pay someone all the time.
Right.
You have to figure it out. You have to commit before you start. There's something, maybe this goes in line with the Who Not How. I don't just have one like guru thought leader I listen to. There's so many over time. But
right.
So when I quote people, I don't agree with everything they do, but Tony Robbins is one of the gurus.
Mm-hmm.
And there was about a year ago, somebody was interviewing him or talking to him on a podcast, and he called it the tyranny of how.
Mm-hmm.
And there's big statements that a lot of people make, like these definitive things. I don't know if it's always as definitive as they say, but he said, if you're someone that is asking how,
Mm-hmm.
you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said. So if you're a person that needs to figure out how before you get started, it's not going to go well.
Right.
And he's learned that from being around thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we see so often in life, probably when you're working in technology and cybersecurity
Mm-hmm.
and having this engineering brain, you're looking for what's most likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What's normal? What have I seen? You're not looking for the exception. That could happen, but that might take a long time to find the needle in the haystack. Am I right?
Right.
Right? And so
Start
I think
with the obvious.
that's it.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of these people that have a bunch of experience before us. They will see it. It's probably what psychologists do. They're like, oh, I've seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to diagnose that thing. Well, it's easy to diagnose certain mindsets. And if
Mhm.
somebody is sitting back saying, I'm a little scared,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little afraid, I need to spend more time figuring out how.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the premise of the book? Go find the
Right.
person that can do it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it could even be, a friend, or, if you join a chamber of commerce, if you get into groups and you start networking and meeting people, a lot of people want to sit down with you for half an hour, and just sort of, let you pick their brain. And I've done that numerous times with people. What did you do? And so one of the great things about this IT group I'm part of is we do a weekly peer group call, and we talk about what's going on in our business. What are the struggles you're having right now? What can I help you with? And we help each other all the time. We have a Teams chat. We get stuck on something, put it on the Teams chat. How did you solve this problem? I ran into an accounting system that hasn't been sold in 10 years. Does anybody know how this works? I need to reinstall it for somebody. Having that support group of other people is pretty amazing. So even in your local community, if you're thinking about starting a business, I can bet that you could probably go to another business owner who's even a competitor, and you said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business like this. Can I buy you coffee and let me, let's talk about what you did, what you learned, something that can help me get started, maybe, some lessons learned from your business.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like these conversations, which you should, hey, be sure to follow The Necessary Entrepreneur on your favorite social media platforms so you never miss out on any future content. Have you found there's a best way for us to learn? You know how they say there's different ways we learn. Some people read, some people listen.
Mm-hmm.
But the world now is shrinking because we have access to so much more information now.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be elevating all of our brains and IQ to similar levels. It should.
Right.
Because we can pull up this thing called YouTube. We have Google and other search engines. It's just fingertips away and thoughts away. So is there a best way that you found? Because I think you're a guy that can take these complex issues and try to communicate them to us simple.
And that's what I have to do every day is try to explain these issues to business owners, where these things are super technical. They say a lot of businesses today are, think about like Domino's Pizza. They say they're a technology business that sells pizza. They're not a pizza company. So how can you as a business owner leverage technology to help your business succeed? Because you've got to use that tool or you're going to fall behind. And that's what I try to do. And so if you can't explain it to people, it's not some magic black box. I mean, a lot of people think it is, but you've got to be able to explain those things and why they need certain things and why it's going to help them grow their business.
Okay. I'm going to throw one at you here.
Okay, let's go.
Then explain living a good life, because so many people find it difficult these days.
Yeah.
That's a complex idea.
That is a complex idea.
How do we do it?
My engineering brain doesn't work with that one too well. I wish
Why
I
not?
had the answer to that.
We're trying to figure that one out.
Right.
It's not just like, hey, treat people well.
Yeah, there's no simple answer to that one.
So what do we do? What's the approach? Let's say one of your kids were to ask dad that.
Mm-hmm.
Like tonight, they call and as if they were telepathically in this room and say, Dad, life seems tough right now. Not any one idea. Can you simplify it for me?
Right. So the first thing is just talking about it. My wife is a psychiatrist, so she's really good at this.
Oh, no. It's as if she's sitting here now.
She's probably going to listen to this later and give me feedback.
So she's already worked on the Jeff brain that's talking to Mark today. So
Right.
she's kind of here.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one of your kids, think about, we don't need to know the name of which
Mhm.
one. You have 3, right?
Right.
Okay. The most difficult one, and they're going to know who it is, but you don't have to say the name. You don't have to talk if it's a boy or girl. You just have to say, of the most difficult one that posed this question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Life seems complex. What do I do?
Right. So it's a matter of building relationships with people. So it's not just doing it on your own. Get in a support group. Get in, whether it's being with a church group or a group of friends or something where you have those people that you can lean on, because you are going to run into problems. Nobody's life is perfect. How can you lean on those other people when you run into those tough times to kind of get through it? And I think when people try to solve everything themselves, I think that's when they run into problems.
So we have to treat other people well so they want to be around us too, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Right? So guys, in the beginning, treat other people well.
Mm-hmm.
The best times I've felt good about life is when I'm doing things for others.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. So that's something that selfishly makes me feel good. That's good for others.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a good place to start.
Right. Absolutely.
Go find somebody you can help out and maybe make a little bit of a difference today.
Yeah. Sure.
I think sometimes it's simple as holding the door. I don't care what people say about chivalry's gone, whatever. Treat people well. I like when someone holds the door for me.
Right.
Right? I don't like at times now when some people call me sir, because that makes me an old guy, but I guess it is what it is.
My daughter has to prove that to me sometimes, where she will rush ahead to hold the door for me.
Just for the reverse, because you're raising them in this new world.
Right.
And I'm like, good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is just chivalry from, a guy treating a girl that way. It's like, treat everyone that way.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with her doing that, right?
Right. Just be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. If you see a little way you can pick something up, if they drop it, pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
I do love, I don't know how Louisville is, if it's similar to, we see we're so far away, but we're so close. But there's something special about this Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati. We're confused. Are we Southern? Are we Midwest? What are we?
Right.
You all feel Southern, I think, Louisville.
I think it's still kind of a mix.
Okay. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When I've traveled a decent amount, I'm sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something special here. We still say hello.
Right.
We still acknowledge people. We might stay at the stop sign just a little bit longer on our best days, maybe, to let the other person go.
Right.
I found myself coming in this morning, and there's a sidewalk as you go down one of the roads or streets by our building, and a lady was getting ready to come across. She had stopped, because there's a bunch of rude people these days, but I stopped. And she's like, no, go. And I'm like, no, there's a sidewalk for a reason. There's a crosswalk. And so I told, it still feels good to be from here. But these stereotypes about the Northeast in certain areas, they apply a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do. So maybe come live in the Midwest or the South with us, right?
Right.
We still treat people well.
Right.
Okay. What's your thoughts about that? It feels different here versus other places.
I think it does. I think when you just say, hello to somebody, or, people greet each other and are nice to each other, sometimes, it's kind of interesting. The business I worked for before, we had an office in New York City, and just that culture versus Louisville, it's different, and it's faster, and people don't necessarily have time to stop and do things like what you said. If you cross the street, the cab might run over you, but
it probably not as might. It probably will. There's a lot of horns going off in New York City.
Right.
I was just there in January.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good basic approach to a business, isn't it? Like, look out for other people.
Right.
Like, you could really apply that to cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
That's your entire business.
Right.
Right.
Just try to help people.
Wow.
And it's why I enjoy doing it, because it feels like I'm making a difference. So when I help people, when I help them prevent an attack, or somebody gets stuck and I solve a computer problem for them, you kind of get a little rush that you fix somebody, you help them solve this problem today. So I just really enjoy doing that.
What do you have a bad relationship with? Not who. What do you have a bad relationship with that you thought that you would like for it to be better? And that comes from a place of, I'm like, Jeff, what do you think about money?
Mm-hmm.
And people will say something about that. Like, well, here's my opinion of money.
Right.
What in this life do you wish you had a better relationship with? Could be a person, could be a thing, Could be these cyber criminals.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like when I'm just kind of ready to decompress, I just sit and watch TV too long, watch sports all afternoon, things like that. But nothing wrong with that. But
maybe you're like, that's my little self-improvement moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes we have to veg out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to go to these places, just let it decompress.
Right.
What do you do? Go ahead.
That's just my introvert part of me. So when you think about recharging,
I think we're all introverts. I think Jeff's crazy, and just like Mark and everybody, no one would initially meet me and say, wow, that guy's an introvert. But there's times I really feel that I am.
Mm-hmm. I
think everyone's an introvert and an extrovert at times.
Mm-hmm.
An introvert is just like, hey, I don't feel like talking to anyone today.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be by myself. I want to be my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You're not that guy anymore. Maybe one day you thought you're not an introvert. In moments.
Right.
You like people.
I do.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, we know some people who don't. You have to be successful.
Right. Yeah, you can't hide in your basement and run a business.
But can you?
Not really.
Not a good one.
Not anymore.
You've got to come out.
You've got to come out and talk to people.
Yeah.
And it could be just as simple as going to networking events. Just put yourself out there and try it. That's what you got to do. You just got to start.
So you reminded me earlier that in 3 generations, no one's going to remember me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the hope is they still, after 1 or 2, they do.
Right.
Man, then why does any of this matter?
It's more about the legacy, I think.
Yeah? You care about that?
I do a little bit, yeah. You got to. So you got to feel like, you've passed on, like I said before, you've passed on some of your values and things that are important to you, to your kids, to other people. You've been kind to somebody. You've done something that made a difference in somebody's life. Those kinds of things, necessarily, you just don't know how they're going to impact people in the future. So, there was a college roommate I had that we used to argue all the time about stupid stuff. And he emailed me on LinkedIn not too long ago and said, hey, I was thinking about some of those things you said. I think you were right.
40-something years ago.
Like, yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
How'd that feel?
It was pretty cool, yeah. I mean, he was right about some stuff too, but we were both a little bit stubborn, so.
What's stubborn look like as a 20-year-old Jeff? What's stubborn look like?
Kind of want to do things your own way. You've got all the answers. You want to do everything. You know how it needs to get done, and I'm still a little bit that way.
Would we be better off just to listen more to others, or no? You could probably make an argument that no, but would we be?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to listen. Well, make sure my wife doesn't listen to this part, but we work on listening, and that's something that if you don't listen, it's hard to understand the person that you're talking to. I'll tell you a story about my daughter. Came in one day. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing some homework or something, and kind of in passing said, "How you doing?" And just kind of a greeting. And I kept walking, and she said, "Where are you going?" You asked me how I was doing. Don't you want to know? So it kind of woke me up a little bit there. So if you're going to say things, really mean it. Then I learned, if I'm going to walk in, I'm just going to say hi. If I'm not ready to talk, if I'm okay to talk, I'm going to say, like, how was your day?
Or if you're not ready to listen.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
But then you have to be smart enough to know who not to listen to.
Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of times what happens is, especially like when you're in a big group, you're kind of wandering and you're thinking about the next thing you're going to say to add to the conversation. And that's really difficult to turn off your brain a little bit there. And especially when you're out trying to network and meet people and you forget their name already because you're already thinking about something else. So just taking time to stop and think and listen to them, because people like to talk about themselves. So, listen to their story and talk to them.
I think what I do know is it is about how people feel when you're around, when they're around you. And if you just let them talk about the things that are important to them, and the things that are on their mind, their problems, what they know. I don't even think the next day they're specifically going to remember what they said to you. However, they're going to like you. And that's an unlock to life and business. It's something I've had to work on more. Man, just listen more. What you have to say really doesn't matter that often anyway. I'm just talking about the things I feel. It's very rare that we have a novel idea, that it's really something that if the person stopped and listened to, you'd really change their life.
Right.
Right. Listening is one of the best characteristics that we can work on. Yeah. And then the next level to that is communication. And when there's a problem, talk about it.
Right.
Just get in front of it and deal with it. It might not be fun, but
yeah, and
right.
I'm not great about that sometimes.
Well, a lot of us aren't.
I want to go hide somewhere.
Yeah,
because I don't want to talk about it.
It just gets worse, though, doesn't it? Almost everything. Yeah. What would your kids say about you?
I don't know.
That was a deep breath.
Got to think about that. I know what they say on the Father's Day cards. But what they really think, I don't know. I think they think we tried hard. I think we worked hard, tried to provide for them and sacrificed for them. So I think there's that. I think they believe we did the best we could.
If they really do think that, that's really important. They can figure everything else out after that. Because having gratitude I've found is one of the best things to have in life. Because if you have gratitude for something, then you're just going to take responsibility after that. That's what I found out. Like, hey, I really appreciate what that person did for me. Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity I have. Hey, I really appreciate that I was able to wake up to these simple things. And then once you appreciate it, then you got to take responsibility.
Right.
That's one of the best things. If they say that, hey, they tried hard, they did the best they could, it means you've done a good job as a parent. Was that what you want to think they think, or that's what you think they think?
I would hope so. So they tend to support that, but I'm sure there's times where they don't think that, especially when they were teenagers.
Oh, listen, the things we thought when we were teenagers, right?
Yeah, we knew everything.
Yeah, and the world was against us, right? Yeah, we were on. I think one of the biggest things looking back, there's a certain period in our lives, somewhere from being a kid and throwing the tantrum at the grocery stores, not getting what we want. It's funny to think we were that person, that little version of ourselves. But then we think for some reason we're playing the starring role in everyone else's movie, and that's just not true. We're playing it in our own movie, at least we think.
Right.
But we're not the starring or leading role for anyone else. It's tough to come to terms with that.
Right. So you've heard of the hero's journey, right?
Yeah, so go there with that.
So yeah, you want to be the guide. You don't want to be the hero of the story. You want to be the guide, the wise old sage that helps the person who's struggling with a problem get through their problem and get to the end where they feel like they succeeded on their own, where you didn't do it for them.
Have you done that?
I hope so. It's one of those hard things to do, because especially when you know the answer to something. So when I was managing a big team of IT people, a lot of times it was difficult for me to kind of let go and trust somebody to do it when I could do it in a couple of minutes because I knew how to do it, but sort of guide them to the answer that I wanted them to get to. So, what do you think about this? Well, how would you solve that problem? Have you thought about this? Sort of let them come to the right answer, but let them feel like they solved it. And, it made them feel good. And it feels like they learned something, versus just when you tell somebody how to solve a problem, you tell them how to do something, they don't really learn anything, which, unfortunately, I think happens a lot today with Google and YouTube. People just search something. They don't really learn it. They just know because I can search it and I can find the answer. I don't really need to know how to do that.
These things were taught and learned before me and you were, and anyone in this room were ever a thing. How many times you can lead a horse to water, which can't drink, teach a man to fish,
right? Yeah,
right. These things have been here for centuries, and so as I'm listening to you, what I want to sit and tell everyone, it's like, learn how to fish.
Or find somebody who can teach you.
That's part of it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's it. But then listen to them. Learn how to fish. Don't expect them to go fishing. and bring in the catch for the day and give it to you.
Right.
Right? You have to be willing to put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in the 80-20 rule?
Sort of, yeah.
What sort of mean?
So I think, it seems like everything boils down to that, right? So, 80% of the problems, or 80% of whatever. So it's always.
So it's like 20% of the people do 80% of the business. 80% of the people only do 20% of the business. And that's not just about people. It's like usually then your customers. 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the customers. What about that? So you said kind of.
Yeah, so I try to avoid that in a way. So one of the things I try to do is avoid having a dependency on one client. So I feel like, as the owner of a professional services business, if I've got all my money coming from one client, if that one client walks away, that's a problem. So I'd prefer to have lots of smaller clients for me, than one or two really big clients. It makes things a lot more steady, and I enjoy the work a lot more.
But isn't it inevitable that most likely that's going to come to form again? Even if you have diversity in your client mix, there's probably 10, 15, 20% of them that, and this goes back to, is it that just because there's 20% of businesses that work harder, there's 20% of businesses that are smarter.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, so I've got a small percentage of clients who call the help desk frequently.
That do a lot of business?
More average for me, but they call a lot, and that's okay. And so that's why we built the business the way we did. So I know that it's going to even out over the whole business, and they're going to call, and I'm confident that I've got a good help desk staff that's going to take care of it. And it's pretty rare that they have to call me for something that they can't figure out.
You're teaching people to be engineers, Jeff. We can't handle a world of engineers. Only a certain amount of you, I promise. Have you figured out, are there truths about humans and people that you don't want to share, but is a truth to you? Are there truths, like I said, the 80-20 rule? That argument is that 20% of the people are going to be at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And whether we want to fight it or not, me and you aren't in control of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a step back, there's a lot of people who don't read books.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who do, educate their brain.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that when 5 o'clock comes, they've been waiting on that time on that clock for a couple hours. But there's a few who don't.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say I haven't been through some of those cycles myself, right? Where you kind of get bored with what you're doing a little bit, and you can't wait till the end of the day to get done with it. But you got to just remember, you're going to run into those cycles like that. It's okay to have some really good times and some really down times. It's going to happen. So just be ready to deal with those as they come up.
That's easy to say.
Easy to say. It's really hard to do. Exactly.
Be ready to deal with it.
And it's definitely times where you feel like, what am I doing? Maybe I should just quit and do something else, right?
But you're not a guy who does.
No.
You're not a quitter.
No.
Where'd that come from?
Probably mostly my dad when I was younger. So, he was always working, doing extra things, expected a lot out of us when we were kids. So I knew that, like, even going to college, my parents said, look, we make too much to pay for school, but, we can't do it. You need to figure it out. So I did. And, took me 6.5 years to get a degree, but worked the whole time and paid for it as I went.
So they didn't make enough to pay for school.
Right.
Is that what it was? They're like, hey, we don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
But it's still important that you do.
Right.
And you listened.
Yes. So, and the alternative was, hey, you can always get a job at the plant, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I wanted for my career. So,
did he work at the plant?
He did, yeah. So, definitely that was a career path that was out there. But for me, I didn't want that same career path.
Why not?
It just felt like more like a 9-to-5 kind of thing. You're putting in the hours, and I really wanted to, I really like kind of figuring things out. Even when I was a kid, my dad bought me an electronics set, and I built my own computer out of wires, with stuff he gave me. So like tearing things apart and figuring out how they worked. So it was always sort of that um, interest in figuring things out like that, and I knew that that was something I wanted to do with my career as I grew up. Now, after the astronaut thing didn't work out, so
Was that the idea?
that was the original idea. I grew up in the early '70s, so astronaut was a pretty cool thing to do. Everybody wanted to do that. Even had a cardboard box with a picture of the moon in it. So
Our science projects, huh?
right, exactly.
So your parents were a part of the Greatest Generation.
They were
Right?
a little after that,
Just after it.
right,
So the Greatest Generation, I guess that was the folks that came back from World War II
right.
and that built families. So they were just after that.
Yeah, my grandfather was in World War II, and he was actually came into Germany and fought there in World War II.
Wow.
So,
What should we learn from them? Because everything we have now is they should get credit for it.
mm-hmm.
They made our lives a lot easier.
Right, they sacrificed a lot.
And we just don't seem like we're willing to sacrifice the same amount now.
Right, it's a smaller group that seems like they do.
What do we do with that?
Yeah, I think that the problem, I don't know if I'm going to solve the problem here,
Well,
but
we can talk about it. That's
but
how
I think a lot of it is things are a lot easier these days, so they don't have to work for it. That generation grew up in the Depression, where they didn't have anything, so they had to work hard to get everything they had. So this is kind of all they knew. Where today, it's everybody wants and it's nothing wrong with that either. You want to make your kids have a better life than you had. So what can you do to do that? We haven't lived through some of those same sort of times that they did. So, parents, got kids in sports when they're 5 years old, and it's kind of crazy. And
yeah, we're having a problem. This isn't just parents to kids. This is companies with employees. We're raising up weaker people because if we're really honest with ourselves, the best form of us came out of struggle.
mm-hmm.
It came out of overcoming those really tough moments in business, those tough moments in a kid when you just had to keep going and not quit. And you figured it out. And the reason why that's so important is because, again, it's back to Jim Rohn. The person that we became through the struggle, through the adversity, is more prepared now for the next one.
Right.
Right? We're not having to figure out. But if you're waiting until you're 35 years old to figure out how to deal with tough, man, life is going to be really difficult.
Right.
Right? If we're 1% better, then it's important for parents now to let us go through some tough stuff. Like, don't let us die. But let us go through some tough things when life isn't so serious.
Right.
Because life gets really serious in your 30s.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. And you're in our 20s, for the most part. I mean, you're having kids. You had time to figure it out. You had time to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all making it a little bit too easy on employees, on kids. It's making us a little more weak.
Today, with everybody working remote, you're losing that interaction you had before too.
Yeah.
So it's a different work environment today than it was even 10 years ago.
Boy, go out and work hard because I still wake up every day and I still feel like there's tremendous opportunity in this country. Tremendous opportunity. Had a guy on the other day who immigrated from Turkey in '97, went to New York City, became a pizza delivery guy, got fired from that job, went to work for Domino's, talked about Domino's earlier. And then 6 years later, he comes back and buys the one pizza location that fired him. And he wasn't even mad about why he got fired. He's just like, I didn't do it, but the guy still fired me. And the life he has built from starting as a pizza delivery guy in 1997, what he said, we lose perspective. He said, in Turkey, this opportunity wasn't the same. And now he has a couple daughters going to Columbia in New York. And he still works 10 and 12-hour days in his 50s going into 60s. And he appreciates every bit of it.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like, we tell kids today they have to go to college. And I told my kids, I said, college would be great if you want to do that as a career, but I'm okay if you don't.
So what do they need to do whether they go to college or not? What's the thing they need to do? Because I have something. What do they need to do?
Something that they enjoy, something that's going to be challenging for them, something that's interesting to them.
You think something they enjoy is important? We might find our first form of disagreement here.
Somewhat. I mean, eventually you can't work at a fast food place for your full career, right? and some people do because they have to.
But the guy who's the CEO of Walmart now started out as a guy doing stock work there.
Right. I had a job washing dishes.
Yeah.
So, worked every.
But I bet, did you care about doing a great job? Because that's what Frank said about Kabatas. That's what he said. He said, if you're a dishwasher, do a great job.
Right.
Is that the important advice then? Hey, if you're not going to go to college, you better, whatever you're doing, you better do it great.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because that's going to lead to other opportunities, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's maybe what we were taught.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were taught, like, do a great job. Work hard.
Yeah. Do your best.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads to so many great things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I found myself over the past 3 days, my body's sore right now. It really is. I'm 45, and I'm working with a couple 25-year-old guys, and we're building an interior stairwell in this building, cutting holes in floors, demoing concrete, taking it down in wheelbarrows in elevators.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. I'm going to be honest. It's not fun. No part of that was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah. Right?
I did help with a construction job this summer when I was in high school.
It's not fun.
It was hard. It was definitely hard work, and the guys on the crew gave me every job they didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But it was hard, and I learned a lot that summer.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity to retract what you said to do what you like. So you can still stick with it if you want.
I think, if you don't do something, to me, I don't want it to be a job. I want it to be something that you can challenge you and help you grow in your career. If you're going in it as just a job, then it's going to always be just a job. So I want you to grow yourself and get better. If you're going in it just to get the paycheck, then it's, you're not going to get a lot out of it.
That seems so hard for so many folks these days.
It is hard. Yeah, definitely.
Because so many people are working just for the paycheck.
Mm-hmm. It is very difficult.
I would say something totally different. I would say you can turn any job into something you eventually like. I found that out.
Right. Like you said, be the best dishwasher you can be,
Because you're a
Enjoy
guy.
it.
Yeah, you're a guy who the owner of that restaurant where you're washing dishes, there's so few people that care about doing a good job washing the dishes. If you show that attribute and that trait and that willingness and that work ethic, that owner of that restaurant, it may take them a while, but they're going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to recognize, like, that person has something that's different. You're going to create opportunities.
Right, exactly.
Right? You know that's a truth, you being a business owner.
Right, exactly. So if you just create those opportunities, do the very best you can, no matter what it is, do the best you can. And you're going to get those other opportunities, even if it's in the job, so to speak. Maybe you're going to be something where you're going to have more opportunities to manage people or do different jobs, or maybe because you're doing a good job, you get a choice of a better thing to do at that particular place.
I see so many hard workers these days, even in the trades. Maybe you could share if you have a different experience, but a lot of these guys who are plumbers, who end up becoming a master plumber, who end up starting their own business, and sometimes they're one man in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Go out into the country, just 20 miles from here, and you'll see a beautiful ranch home sitting on 5 or 10 acres,
right,
with a half-acre lake in front of it, with their workshop that's a barn. And they've built one heck of a life. That the life that most people, it's what dreams are made out of. And that was developed and made through sheer determination. Yeah. And sheer hard work and commitment.
Yeah. I had uncles that were electricians, and they loved being an electrician. That was something they just really got excited for every day, and they loved doing it.
I bet they built an awesome life.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you going to do the rest of 2024 with this business, with this consulting business? You're trying to set it up to sell. Oh, you guys, you business owners just trying to sell your businesses. Maybe I'll be smart. That's not a focus of mine. I'm here at 45. It's not. I've been doing this 17 years now with this real estate company. Everybody has a number. There's some ridiculous number if somebody was stupid enough to give it to me. But it's so ridiculous, it'll never sell. The number would be so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I probably would say the same thing
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
But
And then you were wrong.
at some point, yeah, we all had nice spreadsheets back when we started that company of, how much our stock was going to sell for, and it ended up being worthless. So we had to start over a couple times. But
What's the rest of 2024 look like for Z-Jak and Jeff and all this stuff?
yeah. So it's kind of amazing. So I've got a lot of clients who use Apple computers these days, which is interesting.
Macs, and it is interesting, isn't it?
And I think because a lot of stuff is moving to the cloud, where before people were dependent on internal servers and things that were Windows application dependent. My wife's business, she uses a Chromebook because she loves Chromebooks. You're not tied to a Windows computer anymore. So if you like using a Mac, that's great. And it's interesting because I've got probably as many clients using Macs as I do PCs. So recently got approved to be an Apple consultant. So
how dare you?
So I kind of feel like I'm working both sides of the religious aisle here.
What a traitor. What a traitor. You've got all the certificates, right? Man, I tell you what, maybe that's the best. Maybe in this world, that's what you have to be. You got to carry blue and red. You got to carry all the stuff and be able. Yeah, what is that? You wouldn't, the 10 year ago, Jeff, you wouldn't have believed you were sitting here saying this now about Apple.
No, it would have been heresy.
Yep.
10 years ago. So even like my father-in-law has a Mac, and
how dare he? The previous
like, what do you want that for?
Yeah. What's he say? The ease of use.
Yeah, exactly. He likes it. It's easy to use. So it's nice now because I work with a lot of Apple computers. If I'm up there visiting, I know exactly how to help them now. So it doesn't feel like I'm kind of fumbling around as much.
So then 2024, you see a lot more Apple in your life.
I probably do. We'll see how that goes. But it's something that's kind of a newer thing that's come up, where I keep signing up clients and they show me all the Mac computers they have. Like, okay, where I was a little worried about it maybe a couple years ago, it doesn't bother me as much anymore. I just see a lot of it.
Is there a difference in security between Windows-based and Mac-based?
Macs are a little more secure than the PCs, but I tell people they still go after Macs. You can still get hacked. When I put on the tools that we use to protect Apple's computers and PC computers, people are surprised that I start pulling out malware off their Macs. They don't know it's there.
Malware is just people tracking what we're doing, right, and recording our keys.
It could be a virus. It could be all sorts of things. So
a bunch of bad stuff.
All the bad stuff, right? It could be ransomware. It could be anything. So, but what you see is because there's so many more Windows PCs, it's like going after the market. If you're going to go after people who like fried chicken in Kentucky, you're probably going to have a lot of clients, right? Versus something else that's more of a niche type product. So, those are the kinds of things, because there's not as many Macs, then they're just not as big a target as the PCs.
You know how I know Jeff still has a lot of life in front of him and you can impact the world? Do you know how I know?
What is that?
Because Colonel Sanders started KFC later than your age right now.
Exactly. And that's something I told some other people. I said, hey, if Colonel Sanders can start when he's older, why not me? So why not start over? My wife said, okay, you can start over, but this is the last one. You're not starting any more businesses after this
roll
one.
Your eye. So you just brought up a brand, Apple.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the only businesses that the term changed. Like an apple was an apple. Now you say Apple, our brain
computer
goes to this tech thing.
Right.
But what do we make of a Steve Jobs? He's such a controversial figure. That company wouldn't be a thing without that individual. I've read the book.
Yeah.
What about him?
So he was a brilliant marketer, good business leader. I think Steve Wozniak does not get the credit.
Of course, you engineers want to give Steve the love and the credit, huh?
I think it was a good partnership for them. I think Wozniak, had a lot of the good technical ideas to really build that stuff, but without Steve Jobs, it never would have happened.
Isn't that wild? What do we do with that in business? What do we do with that idea?
Mm-hmm. So I worked for a business at one point where it was a husband and wife that owned the business, and the husband was the dreamer, and the wife was the pragmatist. He had all these great ideas, but she kind of like, okay, let's think about this. So you've got to have that balance in the business, somebody to really bounce those ideas off of, somebody who can be more practical. it's good to have big ideas, but you gotta make them work too. So, kind of balancing those two.
Yeah. How do we jive this argument that we have about leading a business, and Steve Jobs wasn't a lot of those things that we say you should be?
Mm-hmm.
How you treat people at times.
Yeah, he was tough manager.
Tough.
For sure.
That I don't know if in 2024 if Apple could actually become Apple anymore, because the board would probably fire him and not bring him back. You know the story. They would fire him early in Apple, and that company would never become something.
Right. I don't think people want to work for him now. I think just the culture's different.
So the question is, could a company as great as Apple become a company now?
Maybe, but I think it might be harder work.
Wow, what do we do with that?
I don't know. I mean, you even see that like with basketball players. We're in Kentucky again, right?
Yeah.
So the basketball players have changed, where they're
soft.
it's more like a pro.
They're soft.
Type.
NBA's soft. NBA's soft now.
It's more where before it felt like more like you were teaching, and the kids were more receptive. Now that they come in, they've got the people who work around them who help them out. And it's more like molding an NBA team in college than it is, a real college sort of team.
Yeah, we hear the way that Bill Walton, I mean, probably arguably the best coach. I mean, we go back to the Bill Waltons and the original NFL coach, man. God, how special is it, Lombardi? We talk about a lot of these coaches from the past, and man, those guys were tough.
Yeah.
If you didn't follow their rules and their way to do it, like your opinion as a player didn't matter.
Right.
And that was the great teams.
Right. Well, like Howard Schnellenberger at Louisville.
Yeah.
He was a tough coach, but then he tried taking that to Oklahoma, where he's dealing with these guys who are really good, and it just didn't work out for him. But, it's kind of a different sort of mindset these days.
Then the old question is, are the great moments of America, are they in the past?
I don't think so. They're just different. So people just have to change with the culture and change and look for new opportunities.
You don't think that we've lost some of our grit, and that's going to it's going to open an opportunity for other countries to eat our lunch?
I think it's some of that's happening now, where you see, the kids, especially, some of the kids in Southeast Asian culture who, have really high standards from, kindergarten on, versus the kids here who don't have those same sort of standards, where the expectations aren't as high. So I'm afraid if we don't start teaching kids about the STEM careers, go back to that again, I think we're going to have a lot more of kids who have grown up in that culture who are going to take over.
All right, so give us Jeff's brilliance for making this hour-and-a-half trip up from Louisville up 71. Give us your brilliance on how we can move our businesses forward, and not just engineering and cyber. But what do we do to make our businesses better, to become better individuals, to do this better as we go into the second half of 2024 here?
A couple of things. I think one thing is get with a peer group, like-minded business owners, whether they're competitors or maybe even other small business owners who are in the same sort of phase of their business as you, where you can bounce ideas. It could be a round table or something like that. What are you struggling with? Because a lot of times you think as a business owner, I'm doing this by myself. Nobody else could be having these same problems I do. When I read the E-Myth after I'd started that software company in the 90s, I was 4 years in. I'm like, does this guy, does he spying on me? Is this how this works? So, you're not the only one. So get with a peer group, a round table, something to get that feedback. Get a business coach, maybe, something where you just get a sounding board for helping to grow the business. And, bring in advisors, bring in people, do coffees with people, meet people, get out networking, talk to people about your business, and just practice.
People like people. We do. For the most part, people like people. We want to help. We want to talk to like-minded folks. When you get to a certain point in your life, you want to look back and help the ones coming up behind you.
Right.
So that's just find those people.
Right. Yeah, and even like in the group I'm in, one of the guys has a business up in Dayton, needed a bunch of help, and drove up to Dayton and helped him out for a couple days. So that's sort of help with people people who are willing to help you and reciprocate it as well.
So here's the invitation, you all. Reach out to Jeff because he's a guy at a place in his life where he's willing to help. Just give us one place. We'll hit you on all the social media. What's the one place? Is it a website? Is it LinkedIn? Is it an email?
Probably the easiest place is search Z-Jak, ZJAK Technologies. ZJAK Technologies. I mean, that's the only one out there. So we come up at the top of the search results.
Shoot on the other way. Back in the Yellow Pages days, you wanted to start. There's a reason why AAA, AAA.
Right.
Because it was alphabetical. So you went to the end.
I did. Yeah. There you go. So, and I've got links on there to my LinkedIn account, YouTube channel. We put news out there every week and just sort of latest tech updates. We put blog posts out every 4 or 5 days.
And guys, don't go and buy the Apple cards. It's a scam.
It is. Yeah. Be careful with that. So we always tell people, stop, think, and connect are the 3 things to remember. So if you get something suspicious, stop, then think about it for a minute. Does this sound right? Is this something that I should be thinking about? Is this suspicious? And then who can I connect with who might know what's going on? Call somebody. Did you mean to send this email? If you got an email from somebody you weren't expecting, call them. Hey, did you really send me this Acrobat PDF file that's an invoice? Don't open it.
What happens if we open that?
You could get an infection on your computer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's how they get in. Like I said, they're sending out millions of these things. They just need one click, and then you pop up on the big board of here's a target. Let's go after them.
Is it more safe for me to see that on my PC and say, let me open it on my Apple phone? Is that more safe?
Slightly, but still not secure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be afraid.
I try to tell people not be afraid, and people always talk about, like when I do a talk, they say scary stories from Jeff because I've always got a story for him about something that happened. But I don't want to come into it like from a fear perspective. I want to come into it from this is what we can do to help your business grow. And we're just going to take care of these things so that you don't have to worry about it. You can't sleep at night. Doesn't mean we're going to be 100%. You can't get hacked, but we want to take it away where it's not as big a problem, something to worry about for your business.
All right, as we wrap up here, you have an hour and a half you're going to be able to think about, or you're going to be in trouble from your psychiatrist wife. Is there anything that we need to have now that we need to say, honey, wife, I'm sorry. Now you've figured out more things about than you ever known. Do you need to have some, I don't know, is there an asterisk about psychiatrist wife here at the end? You're sorry. Yeah. I apologize.
I say that frequently. and she's good at drawing it out of me. So
Is she going to put you under the spell tonight? Be like, now, Jeff.
I do appreciate when I show her, like, hey, here's the latest thing that I did, and you got to listen to it. She does listen, and she gives me good feedback. One time I did an interview, and she said, "Looks like you're in a prison cell."
Will this one be acceptable to her today?
I think so. We'll see.
Okay.
She'll have to listen to it when she's in the car or something. It's kind of a long one.
So we don't bore her.
I did show one of a TV interview I did to my granddaughter, and she wanted to know if there was another episode.
So you can tell her, here's the episode.
Here's another episode you can listen to when you're going to bed tonight.
Hey, thanks for giving us this 90 minutes.
You're welcome.
I think you made us a little bit more aware. Hopefully not too scared. Some good approach for business and life. And go find this book. I'm assuming there's a link.
Go to hackedbook.com.
Jeff.
So
that sounds like a bad place that we're going to go to that we shouldn't.
It's not on Amazon. I only sell it through my website. It's $10.
Hackedbook.com. Okay. Let's spell this out though, because if they type one letter wrong, it might not be good.
Right.
So HACKEDBOOK.com.
Right.
Okay. Thanks again for coming in. I'm sure you made us a little bit more smart today. And you're representing Louisville well.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.